Hello and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to take a look at something that I've had now for probably 20 years. Now, I originally had a Super Nintendo and an original Game Boy, a PS1, and I played some NES stuff as a kid on an emulator on an old iMac, but I never really had anything that was Atari. This was actually my first introduction to Atari stuff, and this is an little plug-and-play Activision controller made by Jack Specifics and Toy Max. I believe they kind of worked together on this. Now, I always said if Activision had put out their own console back in the day, back when the 2600 was a thing, they would have shut down Atari, because the games on here, these are some of the best Activision games of the time, and there's also some that are just okay. So we're going to take a look. The first one on here is Crackpots. Now, Crackpots, basically, you are a guy of unknown, I really don't know what his name is, but you're throwing flower pots to basically kill off a spider infestation. They're coming out of the sewer. I guess they could be roaches. It's hard to really say. They kind of look like four-legged spiders. But that's pretty much what it is. This one was pretty addictive. Now, moving on, there you can see Toy Max. Atlantis, another great one. This one, you're shooting down spaceships that are flying by. You have 3 different bases here, and you pretty much control which one's going to shoot using the stick. Now, on this thing specifically, there's actually a button on the top of the stick itself. Well, we just lost the base. We're not doing so good because I'm explaining how this game works. But for a shooter, this one's pretty interesting. You have 3 bases you can shoot from. Left shoots from left, right shoots from right. Of course, that kind of makes sense. And you're just taking down the enemies that are coming down in kind of a Space Invaders sort of style, where they go down one line at a time. The next thing on here is probably the best thing that was ever made for this thing, and that's Pitfall. Now, this was like one of the first games I played on this, and coming from playing like Mario World and Crash Bandicoot, kind of seeing where that sort of genre started with Harry, the Pitfall guy. I believe his name was Harry. I could be wrong there. I fell in the pit. So I did what the name suggests. I pit fell. So in this, it was one of the first like real adventure games. There was, of course, Adventure, which was just alright. You were just a square. This one, you're actually a person. You're a full-fledged, within reason, person. Where you can swing on ropes, you can jump over logs and holes in the ground. And you have to deal with alligators, which is always a little tricky. You got to deal with them when their mouths are closed. Oop, come on. Yeah. Well, you get the idea on that one. Moving down the line, Grand Prix is a racing game that is typical for the era. You pretty much, you're going and you're just avoiding stuff as you drive. Racing games back then were just, I guess this could have been entertaining. This reminds me of those old, I don't even know what they're called. They're like little loops of film that go around and around on a wheel as it, using battery power, it moves, and you move the little like slider to move your character. I had one of those years ago. This is pretty much the video game version of that. Going on, River Raid, another great one. If you haven't tried River Raid, you are in a river and you are raiding. Basically, you have an airplane that's coming through, you shoot everything, you have fuel tanks to refuel, and you can shoot them for extra points, which, when you can, I suggest you do. You go through, you have speed controls, you can slow down, you have your standard speed, or you can speed up if you really want to go fast. When you destroy a bridge, it's pretty much a checkpoint. So let's say if I, accidentally end up into the wall, we're where we're left off. We're not back at the beginning of the game. This one is also one of my favorites. The only favorite of mine that isn't on this is Kaboom, and the reason for that is because it required the paddle controllers. I guess it could have been done on here without paddle, but I wouldn't have wanted to play that without the paddle controllers. On this side of things, it starts to dip a little bit. So you have tennis, which is tennis. You have ice hockey, which is ice hockey. Their boxing game isn't bad. Let's choose Spider Fighter first. So this one is kind of like a typical, you're at the bottom and you're shooting up, anything from Galaxian to Space Invaders to Centipede. one of those sort of games. It's pretty good for what it is. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Centipede, minus the Centipede portion of it, but you're shooting at bugs. It's not bad, but the only game on here that to me is the weakest of them all, pretty much of all of, Activision games, is Freeway. Now, there's been things since then. I think it's called Crossy Road. It's on everything. You can even play it on an Apple TV or a Roku or whatever you want. Games like this has been around since. This is like a less than perfect version of Frogger. You're a duck, I believe. You can't go left and right at all. You can only go up and down, and that's it. You're just avoiding cars on the freeway as either a chicken. I think it's supposed to be a chicken. Why did the chicken cross the road? And all that. Maybe at the time this was okay. I don't think so. If I only had a time machine. Maybe that's what we'll work on in the next videos. We'll build a time machine. We'll go back. We'll see. Was this actually okay back in the day? Or was this just as dull as it is now? Where you're just going straight up. I mean, I can just sit here and just, hold this. Yeah, I'm hitting the thing, but I don't have lives. I don't have health. This just goes on and on. I believe there's a timer. It doesn't show you the timer, but yeah, this was pretty bad. But yeah, these plug and plays. I have a whole drawer of these plug and plays down here. I had that one, and then the next one I got was the actual Atari branded one, which showed me some of the Atari games. I believe this actually had Adventure on it. I'm not sure what else was on it at this point. And this was the biggest thing. You had your Pac-Man ones, you had your Mrs. Pac-Man ones, which were actually wireless. These had infrared lights on them. You had themed ones, you had a television version, you had a ColecoVision version, which is down here. This was me trying to get into all the old consoles, so I collected them all back in the day. There's even a SpongeBob one, which for some reason I'm not seeing, but I know I had a SpongeBob one. I've seen Spider-Man themed ones. There's all kinds of stuff. They're still doing this in a way, but they're doing it more as self-contained handhelds. It's the Pac-Man themed one. That's kind of where things have gone. But back in the day, I mean, these were cheap. These, you could have picked them up. I believe it was only like $30 or $40 at most. It might have even been less than that. And then you just plugged them in with, RCA cables straight into your line-in, which I think that's why they died out, because it doesn't really exist anymore. So, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.